unfortunately has had a lot of casualties over time. We've seen Godi and a number of other people perhaps seen as casualties of a long process. How do we start to, I don't know, mend these fences so that this kind of thing doesn't ever happen again?
Well, look, I think the man who put us in this situation is Advocate Bulelani, right at the beginning, because remember, he's the one who said there's a prima facie case, but I'm not prosecuting. I think that is what created the problems that we've had. But, you know, sometimes one looks at these things and say, you know, as a country, we are developing, we're moving forward, and some of the beautiful things that we have in our constitution, in our laws, will only have meaning and take shape in the course of, you know, falling and rising up and all that kind of stuff. And I think this will serve as a good lesson to all of us. And I think there will be more awareness about the need to insulate the NPA from political machinations. Because if the former president, Thabo Mbeki, had not asked or sought to ask Godi to sort of time his recharging of the former president based on the political calendar of the ruling party, we will not be here. So when you look back,
but we don't know that that's a fact, that he said delay this prosecution. Well,
I thought that was what was central to Godi's problems. That's why the Genola investigation found that there was nothing wrong with Godi. And anyway, the former president was not saying don't prosecute. He was saying the timing. And I'm saying that is interference, because you need to allow the NPA to do whatever it wants to do, independent of whatever political process are playing themselves out within the political arena, so that they can prosecute without fear, favor, or prejudice, irrespective of one's position in life, whether you are a leader or whether you're an ordinary person, so that all of us can have the confidence that if there is a case that is leveled against you, the final arbiter should be the courts, where you are given an opportunity to prove your innocence or otherwise.
You know, we watch you a lot now, and people have come to understand that there are these committees in Parliament that are holding the executive to account. And we then, because you represent us as the public, and I just wonder, could Parliament have played a bigger role in making sure that a lot of these institutions are doing their work, undoing their work properly?
Well, I think in terms of its oversight work, Parliament could have, and I think it still should, you know, do better. And even ourselves as the Public Accounts Committee, I can't say we have reached the pinnacle of how to do oversight. There is still room for improvement, and there is need for improvement. That is why, after our engagement with the NPA this past Wednesday evening, we actually realized that we need to have the NPA and the Hawks together in the same hearing, so as to ensure that investigation and prosecution are all looked at the same time and the same level. And I think at some point, our oversight work as Parliament generally, we drop the ball. You see a flurry of activities right now. My only concern is that it must not be transient. It must be institutionalized, so that even after 2019 elections, we must still find the same tempo in terms of how we hold the executive to account. And I think if Parliament was at its peak level in terms of holding the executive to account, I think a lot of these matters that you know, were carrying from the past could most probably have been addressed and not have been allowed to drag on endlessly.
There's been talk, as we were discussing with analysts earlier on, that, you know, political interference somehow found its way into the NPA in one way or another, whether they either forced decisions or not, but, you know, there was almost this hand that was there. And one wonders then if, as Parliament, do you not need to be having a conversation about changing the powers of the executive to appoint an NDPP? Or do we say that there should be, you put your choice like the Americans do, and then there's a vetting process that maybe Parliament or somebody else does separately?
Well, you will be surprised that even Afghanistan vets ministers once they're nominated by the president. I think, look, the exercise of executive power, once it is legal, there is a lot of political consideration that goes into it. And a lot has to do with the extent to which those who wield political power are committed to doing the right things and actually submit themselves to the laws and the constitution. I do think that the executive and parliament, in as much as theoretically they are supposed to be equal, but in practice, I think you will agree, almost everywhere in the world, you find that those who are in the executive are those who, in the political context, are the most senior within the majority party, and that has its own impact. Even Parliament's oversight work is not a purely administrative process. It is a political. There are political considerations from time to time by various members, whether they are from the opposition or from the ruling party. But I do believe that an active citizenry is ultimately a panacea, because if our people are distanced from the processes either of government or of parliament, that allows the space for arrogance and for people to do as they please. And my experience, if you look at public accounts, the misuse of public money, is that your challenge is not legislation. Legislation is there, but do you have the political will to follow through? Even now we're in the process of amending the powers of the Auditor General so that he can, have enforcement powers. Why? Because the administrative and political leadership is just not able to follow through with the laws. So yes, Parliament has a responsibility, a bigger one, if one may say. But I think there are quite some shortcomings that you need to address.
What do you think has been our biggest failures in terms of this matter? Because it then speaks to what needs to be fixed.
I think the NPA, for me, has been the cause of the problem. From since when the decision was taken to withdraw the charges to date, I think that's where the problem has been, because ultimately that is the institution that must take the decision, failing which you must then take the court route. So if the NPA itself can always act in ways that even if they are taken to court, they are found to have been procedural, that will breed trust, and secondly, it will discourage people from taking you to court, because now every decision you take, anyone with money who does not agree will say, let's go and test it in court. And once you have that kind of situation, then the integrity of your institutions is non-existent.
I'm going to ask you to put on your MP hat on right now, and I'm a citizen, and I'm sitting at home, I'm working hard, and my tax money is going to SARS, and then they give the money to the budget to the state, and I'm told today that, this case could run another 4 or 5 years, there'll be appeals, and that the taxpayer may still be footing the bill here. How do we appease citizenry when we see millions of taxpayers' rand being tied up in lengthy legal processes? Forget what's happened. There's still quite a journey ahead of us.
Look, that's a tough one. I don't think I can ever convince you that there is merit, in this in this kind of approach, because so many of our people have almost nothing or very little, and those of us in political office who have enough are still diverting resources that should go to these people on matters that are actually of our own doing. So I don't think that any MP or anyone in government can stand up and justify some of these things, which are a result, of very low political morality, where our sense of duty to our people is just not there, where servant leadership is absent, and it's almost like people can do as they please. So I think, like I said, this is big, and I think it does call on us to take a pause and say what needs to be done in a way that really changes the way we approach things and the trajectory of our thinking, our politicking, and even our leadership.
You said that you had the opportunity to get inside the mind a little bit of Shaun Abrahams, and that he wants to do the right thing. Do you think that President Ramaphosa should give him a chance to carry on?
Look, when I say the NPA must be given the space to do its work, I also think even those who say Shaun Abrahams must go, that should also be seen as an aspect of interference, because you are placing a value judgment and insisting that it be so. That will become a subjective judgment. Even if it's made by the judges, they are human beings. So I think, for sake of stability, and because, as you are aware, since Bulelani Ngoka, we haven't had anyone who has been, permanent there. Even with the police, if you look since George Fivers, you have never had anyone who have served throughout. So in the absence of stability, you can't build institutions, and you can't instill a culture of rules-based administration. I think that those who doubted Shaun Abrahams and his independence, I think, for me, when you look at the Estina matters, when you look at this particular case and a whole range, KZN, Mabuya Kulu and others, I think he's saying, let me do my work. And to say, do your work yesterday, I see that as part of interference. Give them the space, let them do their work, and let's see what happens.
If you had the president's ear right now, what would you say to him?
Give the man a chance.
I mean, no, in fact, I say the president, a former president, as is what I'm thinking. If you had his ear right now, because he can appeal, he can go through this, and probably will end up again where we are, what would you say to him rather now?
Well, I would say, look, comrade, they are the charges. You have always denied them, and even in our representations, you denied them. Go to court and have your day. Whatever the outcome, well, take them, like a comrade, and accept your punishment if you are found guilty. If you are not found guilty, then you would have freed a lot of people from all the doubts that have been hanging there for so many years, that I doubt if we'll ever have another case that will, be dragged out for so long in such a way that it actually creates fatigue, in the public space or in the public debate. We need to have this thing resolved one way or the other.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your thoughts with us today. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so that was MP Themba Godi, who you've seen working very hard with the SCOPA in making sure that government is working hard for us, commenting on the work, on the decision that's been made today by the NPA head.